Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by saying that life often gives us questions that can feel unanswerable. Why do we feel so strongly for someone who doesn't feel the same way? Or someone we know isn't right for us? Why doesn't God just remove these emotions so we can move on and focus on what matters? Now, before we dive into the reasons, remember this. Emotions, like everything else in life, serve a purpose. They are not random. They're part of a system, God's system, designed to mold, shape, and grow you into the best version of yourself. Let's explore 4 reasons why God might not be removing those feelings just yet. Feelings are a profound part of our human experience. They are not arbitrary or random, but rather intentional elements of our design that serve a deeper purpose in our lives. If you're holding on to strong emotions for someone and wondering why they persist, it's important to consider that these feelings are more than just a source of frustration or confusion. They are tools for growth. They act as a mirror, reflecting parts of your soul that may need attention, nurturing, or transformation. Emotions are incredibly insightful. They reveal truths about who you are, what you value, and where you are in your journey. Think about this. When you feel love, attachment, or longing for someone, it's not just about them. These emotions also tell you about your capacity to care deeply, your desire for connection, and your ability to dream of shared futures. Even in moments of unreciprocated affection or heartache, your feelings are still communicating something important. They might be highlighting areas where you need to grow, lessons you need to learn, or wounds that need healing. In essence, your emotions are not the problem. They are signposts guiding you towards self-awareness and growth. Consider the depth of human emotions. Why do we feel such strong bonds towards certain people? Why do these feelings sometimes persist even when logic says they shouldn't? It's because feelings are not solely rooted in the rational part of our minds. They stem from a place of vulnerability, connection, and often unmet needs. When God allows feelings to remain, it's an invitation to pause and reflect on what those feelings are trying to teach you. Are they asking you to confront fears of rejection or abandonment? Are they drawing your attention to patterns in your relationships that need to change? Or perhaps they're revealing strengths, like your ability to love deeply and unconditionally, even when it's difficult. Growth doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when we face challenges, when we confront emotions that feel overwhelming and learn to navigate them with grace and wisdom. Feelings are a key part of this process. They bring awareness to areas in our lives that need transformation. Imagine if every uncomfortable or persistent feeling was simply removed. It might bring temporary relief, but it would also rob you of the chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more aligned with God's plan for you. God doesn't shield us from discomfort because He knows the value of growth through struggle. He uses our emotions to shape us, to refine us, and to help us become the best versions of ourselves. Feelings also have a unique way of teaching us empathy. When you hold strong emotions for someone, even if they are unreciprocated or unresolved, it opens your heart to the shared human experience. You begin to understand what it means to long for something, to hope for connection, and to wrestle with uncertainty. These are universal experiences, and they allow you to connect with others in a more compassionate way. That sense of empathy is not just a personal benefit, it's a reflection of God's nature within you. He is love, and He calls us to embody that love in all its complexity, even when it's challenging. At the same time, persistent feelings can act as a mirror, showing you not only your strengths, but also your areas of vulnerability. They may reveal fears you haven't confronted or insecurities that are holding you back. For example, if you're struggling with feelings of unrequited love, it might highlight a deeper fear of not being enough or not being worthy of love. These feelings, while painful, give you an opportunity to address those fears, to bring them to light, and to seek healing. God often uses our emotions to bring us face to face with the parts of ourselves that need His grace the most. It's also worth noting that emotions can be a catalyst for change. When you feel deeply for someone, it might inspire you to take action, whether that's improving yourself, seeking clarity in your relationships, or even strengthening your faith. Emotions have a way of moving us out of complacency and into a place of intentional living. They remind us that life is meant to be lived fully, with passion and purpose. Even when feelings are difficult, they serve to awaken something within us, something that calls us to grow and evolve. Persistent emotions can also be an invitation to lean on God more fully. When you don't understand why you feel a certain way, it's a reminder that not everything is meant to be solved or understood by human reasoning. It's a chance to bring your emotions to God, to ask Him for guidance, and to trust that He has a purpose for allowing those feelings to remain. In doing so, you strengthen your relationship with Him and learn to rely on His wisdom rather than your own. This act of surrender is a powerful step in spiritual growth, as it reminds you that you are not in control, but you are always in God's care. Ultimately, feelings are not meant to be ignored, suppressed, or wished away. They are tools that God uses to mold you, teach you, and draw you closer to Him. When you embrace your emotions as part of your growth journey, you begin to see them not as obstacles, but as opportunities. They become a source of strength, wisdom, and compassion. So, if you find yourself holding on to feelings that seem unshakable, consider this. They are not a burden, but a blessing in disguise. They are teaching you, shaping you, and preparing you for what lies ahead. In God's plan, even your emotions have a purpose, and that purpose is ultimately for your good. Sometimes in the midst of strong emotions, it's easy to forget that there is a bigger purpose behind what we're feeling. We often think of our emotions as something immediate, something that either needs to be fixed or resolved quickly. But what if those emotions are not just about the here and now? What if the feelings you have for someone are connected to a purpose or lesson that God is trying to teach you, even if you can't see it at this very moment? Emotions can be seen as a doorway, not just to our present experience, but to a greater understanding of life, love, and divine timing. Consider that the emotions you feel might not always be about the person in question. Sometimes our feelings point us towards something deeper within ourselves, a call for healing, a need for growth, or a desire for change. When you find yourself holding on to someone emotionally, even if the situation seems impossible or one-sided, it might be less about them and more about what God wants to do in you. Perhaps it's a matter of learning patience, developing resilience, or cultivating emotional maturity. These feelings can reveal parts of your heart that need attention, places where you may be clinging to old wounds, old patterns, or old desires that no longer serve you. But the emotions are not the problem. They are guiding you to the solution. God often works behind the scenes in ways that we cannot understand in the moment. The emotions you're experiencing may not be part of a specific plan for that person, but rather part of a broader plan for your life. Sometimes it's not until later that we realize why we were made to feel so strongly about someone or something. In hindsight, we might recognize that those feelings were meant to prepare us for something greater, perhaps for the right person, the right opportunity, or a deeper understanding of God's will for our lives. At the time, it may seem confusing or even painful, but if we trust that God's purpose is always at work, we can rest in the knowledge that these emotions are not without purpose. They are simply part of the journey towards something better. It's also important to recognize that our emotions often push us toward deeper reflection and self-examination. When you feel strongly for someone, it can open up questions about who you are, what you value, and what kind of person you want to become. These emotions force us to confront our desires and expectations in relationships and help us understand what we truly seek in life. If those feelings are left unexamined or suppressed, we may miss out on important lessons that could lead to personal growth. It's not just about learning what we feel, it's about learning what those feelings are trying to teach us. Do they point to unmet needs, old beliefs, or fears that need healing? Are we seeking validation from another person when we should be seeking it from God? These are the kinds of questions that can surface when we allow ourselves to reflect on the emotions we experience. It's often through the things that challenge us the most, like unrequited love or longing for someone who isn't available, that we come to understand our own capacity for growth. Feelings like these can cause pain, yes, but they also have the potential to deepen our understanding of God's love and grace. God allows us to experience emotions, even difficult ones, because they stretch us and help us develop. When we're forced to face our emotions head on, we can either retreat and avoid the discomfort, or we can lean into the experience and allow it to shape us. The latter is where growth happens. These persistent feelings also serve to remind us that we are not the ones in control of our lives, despite how much we may wish to be. This is where trust comes in. God's timing and plans are often vastly different from our own. When we're caught up in feelings that we don't fully understand, we are presented with an opportunity to surrender our will and trust in His perfect plan. Perhaps God is using your emotions to prepare you for a future relationship, or maybe He's trying to teach you contentment in your current season. Whatever the reason, the emotions you're holding on to may be part of a larger plan that's not immediately clear. This is why it's so important to keep an open heart and mind, trusting that God knows what He's doing, even when you don't. Sometimes, feelings that seem to persist or that feel unanswerable are not about the immediate future, but about preparing us for something more profound down the road. God doesn't work on our timeline, and often the things we desire the most are not ready for us yet. This is where faith comes in. It's easy to question why certain feelings persist, especially if they are tied to a person or situation that seems unmovable. But in those moments, we're invited to trust that God's purpose for our lives is unfolding exactly as it should. Our job is to stay faithful, patient, and open to whatever lessons we're meant to learn in the process. In essence, the feelings you have for someone, whether they are reciprocated or not, may be pointing you toward a deeper truth about yourself or about God's plan for your life. They may not be about that person at all, but rather about preparing you for a future version of yourself that is more in alignment with your purpose. Through these feelings, God is refining your heart, teaching you lessons in love, patience, and trust. While it may be difficult to understand at first, those feelings are far from meaningless. They are clues to a greater story being written, one that only time will reveal. In the end, the feelings themselves might not be the destination, but rather the vehicle that brings you to the place where you can truly see the beauty of God's plan unfolding in your life. Unresolved emotions are often uncomfortable, and yet they present us with opportunities to build strength and resilience. Many people find it hard to embrace the emotional struggles they face, particularly when those struggles seem unyielding or prolonged. When feelings persist and seem to linger for too long, it can be tempting to wish them away, to hope for a quick resolution, or to escape the discomfort. But in truth, these emotional challenges are some of the most powerful tools God uses to help us grow. They are not obstacles to our happiness. They are part of the process of refining. Every emotion that we experience, particularly the difficult ones, plays a role in shaping us. When you find yourself clinging to feelings that seem persistent or unreciprocated, it can feel like you're being tested and indeed you are. But this test is not about failure or about whether you can make those feelings disappear. It's about your ability to endure, to confront your emotions with grace, and to learn how to handle them in a way that contributes to your personal growth. Just as a weightlifter builds muscle by lifting heavy weights, we build emotional strength by facing emotional challenges. The key to understanding this is to recognize that life will always present us with difficulties, and it is through overcoming them that we grow. These emotional trials are no different from any other form of adversity we encounter in life. The more we resist or try to escape them, the harder they become. But when we face them head on, acknowledging our feelings and allowing ourselves to process them, we build the emotional muscle necessary to handle future challenges. Resilience is not about avoiding pain. It's about learning how to carry it, how to persevere through it, and how to emerge stronger on the other side. One of the most significant benefits of experiencing these emotional trials is that they help us develop a deeper understanding of ourselves. When you hold strong feelings for someone, especially when those feelings are not returned or are complicated in some way, you are forced to confront some of your deepest vulnerabilities. You might realize that your emotional reactions stem from fears of rejection, abandonment, or inadequacy. Or perhaps you recognize that these feelings bring to light unmet needs or unhealed wounds from your past. This process of self-examination can be uncomfortable, but it is also incredibly important. It allows you to see where you need healing, where you need to grow, and where you need to become more whole. Emotions, particularly the difficult ones, challenge us to become more self-aware. They force us to examine our beliefs, our patterns, and our responses to life circumstances. This level of self-awareness is essential to personal development because it helps us make better choices moving forward. When we know our emotional triggers, our weaknesses, and our patterns of thinking, we can start to change them. And when we change those internal patterns, we change our behavior, and ultimately, we change the course of our lives. But that process cannot happen without confronting those difficult feelings and choosing to grow through them rather than around them. Building emotional resilience also requires patience and perseverance. Resilience isn't built overnight. It's not something you can simply wish into existence. Instead, it's something that grows slowly and steadily as we face adversity and learn from it. When we endure the emotional turmoil of unreciprocated feelings, we develop the patience needed to wait for God's timing, to trust in His plan, and to resist the temptation to rush through the process. Each day that we allow ourselves to feel those emotions without letting them overwhelm us is a step toward building the emotional resilience we need to face even greater challenges in the future. This process also teaches us how to manage our emotions in a healthier way. Rather than letting them control us, we learn to control how we respond to them. God uses these emotional experiences to help us become more emotionally intelligent, which is a critical skill in all areas of life. Emotional intelligence involves the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions and the emotions of others. It involves knowing how to stay calm in difficult situations, how to communicate effectively, and how to navigate complex emotional dynamics with grace and wisdom. The more we work through our emotional challenges, the better we become at managing our emotions in all aspects of life, from relationships to work to personal growth. Resilience is not just about surviving emotional challenges. It's about thriving in the face of them. It's about using those challenges as stepping stones, not as stumbling blocks. When we face emotional difficulties with courage and faith, we begin to see them as opportunities to deepen our relationship with God and with ourselves. Every struggle is a chance to learn, to grow, and to emerge stronger. We don't have to emerge from these experiences as victims. We can emerge as victors, more equipped, more capable, and more spiritually mature than we were before. God doesn't remove our emotional struggles because He knows that these struggles are crucial to our growth. They help us build resilience, patience, and emotional intelligence. They challenge us to become more self-aware, to confront our vulnerabilities, and to trust in His plan for our lives. They are not meant to defeat us, but to equip us for greater things. Through these trials, we are being prepared for the future, for the greater challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. We are being molded into stronger, wiser individuals who are capable of handling anything life throws our way. So, when you face unresolved emotions or unreciprocated feelings, instead of wishing for them to disappear, take a moment to embrace them. Recognize them for what they are, opportunities for growth. These emotions are not your enemy. Trust that God is using this process to shape you into the person you are meant to be. And know that every step you take through this emotional journey brings you closer to your highest potential. When we experience strong emotions, especially in the context of relationships or unreciprocated feelings, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that we have control over the situation. We may try to push our feelings away, suppress them, or force them to disappear. Yet sometimes these feelings linger because God is teaching us a powerful lesson about trust and surrender. God's timing and His plan are not always aligned with our own desires or sense of urgency. It's in the moments of emotional struggle, when our understanding is limited, that we are invited to let go of the need for control and trust in His divine will. The truth is, when we hold on tightly to our own expectations, whether it's about a person, a relationship, or a situation, we are not fully embracing God's plan for us. We are resisting the flow of His will, and in doing so, we often miss out on the deeper, more transformative lessons He wants to teach us. God's timing is perfect, even when we can't see the full picture. Our emotions may persist for a time because they are part of the process of learning to let go, learning to surrender control, and learning to trust that God knows what is best for us, even when we don't fully understand it. This concept of surrendering is not about giving up or resigning ourselves to a state of helplessness. On the contrary, surrender is a powerful act of faith. It's about letting go of our limited understanding and choosing to trust in a higher power. It's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers and that we are not in control of every outcome. It's about placing our feelings, our desires, and our futures in God's hands, and trusting that He will guide us to the right place at the right time. When you find yourself caught in the grip of persistent emotions, whether they're tied to someone or a situation, it's easy to become frustrated and confused. You may wonder why God isn't removing those feelings, or why things aren't changing as quickly as you'd like. This is where trust comes in. You have to believe that God knows what He is doing, even when His actions, or lack thereof, don't make sense to you in the moment. It's about having faith that the emotional struggle you're experiencing is not meaningless. It's part of a process. And even though you may not understand it now, it's shaping you into the person you are meant to become. Trusting God in these moments requires letting go of the urge to rush the process. We live in a world that values instant gratification, where everything is expected to happen quickly and efficiently. But God doesn't work on our timeline. He operates outside of our limitations, and His understanding is far greater than our own. Sometimes He allows us to experience discomfort or emotional turmoil because He knows that it will ultimately lead to something better. He may be preparing us for a future that we cannot yet see, one that requires us to trust Him completely and without reservation. Learning to trust God during times of emotional unrest is one of the most challenging, yet most rewarding spiritual lessons we can encounter. It's easy to trust God when everything is going well, when our desires are being fulfilled and our prayers are answered quickly. But the true test of our faith comes when we don't understand why things are happening the way they are, when we don't see the immediate results of our prayers, and when our emotions feel raw and unresolved. The truth is, once a person is going through hell, it's a lot easier to think of God. And in those moments, trust becomes an act of surrender. It's saying, God, I don't understand why I'm feeling this way or why things are taking so long, but I trust that you are working in my life, and I trust that your timing is perfect. The key to surrendering is knowing that we are not alone in our struggles. God is always with us, guiding us through the process, even when we feel lost or uncertain. His presence is a constant reminder that we don't have to carry the weight of our emotions alone. We are invited to bring our struggles to Him, to lay them at His feet, and to trust that He will provide us with the strength, wisdom, and clarity we need to navigate through them. In doing so, we release the burden of trying to control the situation and open ourselves up to the possibility of God working in ways that we can't yet imagine. Surrendering also means learning to accept that things may not unfold the way we expect. We may not get the answers we want right away, and we may not get the outcome we envisioned. But when we surrender, we are allowing God to take control, knowing that He has a far better plan for us than we could ever create on our own. The process of surrender is not about passivity. It's about trusting that God is in charge and allowing Him to work in His own way and time. The persistence of your emotions may not always be about the person or situation itself. It may be about your heart's need to trust and surrender. The longer we resist letting go, the harder it becomes. But when we finally surrender, we begin to feel a sense of peace and relief that only comes when we stop trying to control everything. Surrendering doesn't mean giving up on our desires or abandoning our hopes. It means releasing our tight grip on the outcome and placing our trust in God's hands. It's about believing that He will guide us to what is best, even if it doesn't look the way we expect. In the end, the emotions we hold on to may be teaching us the most important lesson of all, to trust God more deeply. He is not withholding or delaying His answers. He is inviting us to grow in faith, patience, and surrender. The process may be difficult, but it is ultimately the path to peace, wisdom, and a deeper relationship with Him. Trust that, in His perfect timing, He will bring clarity, resolution, and healing. Until then, let your heart rest in the knowledge that He is in control and His plan is always for your good. When we find ourselves overwhelmed by strong emotions, particularly feelings for someone, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that our emotions are an obstacle. We may believe that these feelings are a burden, a distraction, or something to be pushed aside as quickly as possible. However, God often uses our emotions not just to help us understand our current situation, but to prepare us for something greater. Our feelings, even those that seem persistent or unrequited, serve as an integral part of the process of growth and transformation. They are teaching us how to be the best version of ourselves, to grow in love, and to develop the qualities that are necessary for our future. One of the most powerful lessons we learn from our emotions is the importance of timing. When we experience intense feelings for someone or something, it's easy to want things to unfold according to our timeline. We may feel frustrated by the slow pace of change or by the apparent lack of reciprocity, but God in His wisdom knows the exact timing needed for everything in our lives to unfold in the best possible way. Our emotions, while real and valid, may not align with the timing that is necessary for us to experience the fullness of what God has planned. What may seem like a delay is often just divine timing at work, preparing us for something better that we can't yet see. The feelings that persist are often part of a broader picture that God is painting for us. These emotions may not necessarily be about the person we feel them for, but about preparing us for the right relationships and experiences in the future. It's important to recognize that our emotional responses can serve as stepping stones toward emotional maturity, helping us become the kind of person who is ready to fully appreciate and engage in the relationships God has in store for us. If we rush through or try to avoid these emotions, we might miss the lessons they are meant to teach us. Instead of focusing solely on the frustration of unrequited feelings or the uncertainty of emotional turmoil, we should focus on the lessons of patience, trust, and growth that come with them. Another important lesson that comes from our emotions is the ability to love in a deeper, more unconditional way. The feelings we experience often challenge us to love without expectation, without strings attached. We may long for the love of another, but God uses these feelings to teach us about self-love, compassion, and empathy. The ability to love without conditions, to offer love freely and without needing it to be returned, is one of the most beautiful qualities we can develop as human beings. Through the feelings we experience for someone else, God is shaping us into people who can love more fully, more deeply, and with greater grace. God allows us to experience emotions not only to prepare us for future relationships, but also to help us grow in our understanding of love itself. Often we associate love with specific outcomes, returning affection, companionship, or validation. However, God's definition of love transcends those outcomes. His love is constant, unconditional, and ever-present. The feelings we have for someone, even if they are not returned, can remind us that love doesn't have to be contingent upon external factors. It doesn't have to be reciprocated to be valuable or meaningful. These emotions, therefore, help us develop a deeper understanding of love as a force that is not dependent on external circumstances, but on our heart's willingness to give freely, just as God gives to us. Emotions also teach us resilience. In times of emotional struggle, we are faced with the challenge of processing and overcoming feelings that can sometimes seem overwhelming. These experiences help us build the emotional endurance necessary for handling future challenges. Life will always present us with moments that challenge us, whether emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. The emotions we feel are a training ground for developing resilience. When we face our feelings rather than avoiding them, we learn how to manage our emotions effectively and grow stronger as a result. This resilience is not about suppressing emotions or pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. It's about acknowledging our emotions, understanding them, and choosing to move forward in faith, knowing that our feelings do not define us and that we are capable of overcoming whatever emotional challenges come our way. Furthermore, our emotions teach us patience. In our fast-paced world where instant gratification is the norm, it can be difficult to wait for things to unfold in their own time. We want answers now, we want resolutions quickly, and we want to feel better immediately. But emotional growth requires patience. It requires trusting in God's perfect timing and allowing ourselves to grow through the process, even when we don't see immediate results. Sometimes we need to sit with our emotions for a while, to allow them to pass through us without forcing them to go away too quickly. The emotions you experience for someone, whether they are reciprocated or not, are ultimately part of your spiritual growth. They are not distractions or burdens. They are the tools God uses to shape you into the person you are meant to become. These feelings are preparing you for the next chapter in your life, whether that means a deeper understanding of love, a stronger sense of self, or a readiness for a future relationship. They are teaching you patience, resilience, and trust, and they are preparing your heart to receive what God has in store for you. Through this process, God is not ignoring your feelings or leaving you to suffer alone. He is using these emotions to guide you, to refine you, and to help you grow into the person you need to be. When we allow ourselves to fully experience and embrace these emotions, instead of pushing them away or wishing for them to end, we open ourselves up to the transformation that they can bring. Each emotion, each moment of longing, each feeling of unreciprocated love is part of God's larger plan for us. He is preparing us, molding us, and making us ready for something greater than we can imagine. Trusting this process is key to understanding that the feelings you experience now are not in vain. They are part of the journey to becoming the person God has always intended you to be.